I think it's fair to say that almost everyone has had an experience with a video game before. Whether it was something as simple as a mobile game like Candy Crush, or one of the most critically acclaimed titles like Ocarina of Time. For many, these experiences stick with us, especially our first gaming experience. In my case, the first game I ever played was a licensed title by the name of Robots. Based upon the film of the same name, it's a title that I haven't seen many online reviewers make videos about, and as such, I thought I would share my opinions on the game after replaying it. Will it hold up as a hidden gem all these years later, or is there a good reason why no one seems to talk about it? Let's find out. I'm PlayTendox, and this is Robots for the PC. For those who haven't seen the movie, I'll give a brief rundown of the story. In a world of sentient robots, Rodney Copperbottom is a young inventor who dreams of working for his hero, Bigweld, at his company, Bigweld Industries. Yet when Rodney leaves his hometown to work for Bigweld, he discovers a new owner by the name of Ratchet. He has plans to wipe out all robots who can't afford upgrades. These people are known as Outmodes. After hearing this news, Rodney teams up with a group of these Outmodes in order to fight back against Ratchet's plans and repair the citizens of Robot City. While this does sound like a solid enough plot for a game, the film's story is followed very loosely. Story segments resort to using scenes straight from the movie told over narration by Rodney's father. Unfortunately, if you haven't seen this movie, you're not going to get the whole picture from playing the game. The few clips that they do use are put together quite poorly and can often feel disjointed when going between cutscenes to levels. While the story may be overlooked, the main components of a video game is of course its gameplay. And in regards to gameplay, things are actually quite good. The game plays out like a typical 3D platformer with combat and shooting elements added to the mix. If you've ever played a game from the Ratchet & Clank series, things will be very familiar here. Sometimes a bit too familiar. But taking inspiration doesn't always lead to a bad game, and in the case of Robots, the similarities don't ruin the experience. The first level of the game is a bit of a tutorial to ease you into what you'll be doing for the remainder of the game. You'll be platforming, fighting robots, and collecting blueprint pieces in order to progress. Rinse and repeat this for 5 hours, and you have a pretty good idea of what the game is. While that may sound tedious to some, I don't believe it becomes an issue, as they constantly change up the environments and add new upgrades to make it enjoyable. To change up the basic gameplay, sections were added where you must control an invention of Rodney's called the Wonderbot to open passageways. It's a fine distraction, but the game includes a more exciting feature in the use of a transport pod. These pods help you complete races and are eventually featured in their own level, which is a major highlight of the game. The variety is definitely here, but when it comes to how long the gameplay lasts, it may be troublesome for some players. Like I mentioned, the game only takes around 5 hours to beat, and the only real replay value is collecting tricks for your Wonderbot. A nice inclusion, but not really something worth going out of your way to find. One thing that is worth going out of your way to find is scrap. It acts as your main currency used to buy upgrades and enhancements at vendors. But interestingly enough, it also acts as ammo for your main game weapon, the scrap launcher. I do wish it was a bit more realized, seeing as enemies are almost always a complete pushover, but the idea is still pretty unique. Overall, the gameplay of Robots is nothing we haven't seen before, but it is solid and put together pretty well. As for the technical parts of Robots, the performance on my pretty average computer had no issues at all. The frame rate is consistent almost all the way through, and despite being 15 years old, the game looks quite beautiful for the time. Some textures are noticeably a bit blurry, but the bright colors, movement of characters, and environmental components gives the game life, like you're exploring a living and breathing world. As for the controls, they are pretty good all around, with the exception of a few hiccups. Moving Rodney around is fine, but platforming will take a bit of getting used to. Rodney is an incredibly heavy character when jumping, despite looking light on his feet. This can lead to some frustrating deaths from falling or having to retread old ground. The only other thing I have an issue with is the aiming sensitivity on the weapons. When using a first-person perspective, The reticle moves way too fast at times, making it difficult to focus on one target. As such, I didn't use the feature much other than when it was required to progress. In addition, the previously mentioned Wonderbot and Transport Pods control great with no issues. Despite a few control issues, Robots is a very technically sound game. After having a chance to replay Robots, I can conclude that it wasn't just my childhood memories that made the game so enjoyable. The story could certainly have been adapted a bit better, and the controls could be touched up a tiny bit more, but the positives far outweigh the negatives. If you're a platforming fan looking for a good game in the vein of Ratchet & Clank, I think you'll get something out of this. I find the game to often be overlooked and can be found pretty cheap at a local game store, so if you're interested, I suggest you check it out. This has been PlayTendox. Thanks for watching the review, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye.